Marcus Holloway left home the same way he had done for 9 years. A quick kiss, a soft smile from his wife, and a promise to call her during his break. Nothing about that night shift felt different. Nothing hinted at the nightmare waiting for him the next morning. When he walked through the front door after work, the house was silent. Too silent. His wife's purse sat on the counter, her car still in the driveway, lights off. No note, no explanation, just absence. Marcus called her name until his voice cracked, called her sister, called friends. When no one answered, he called police. Officers came, asked him the routine questions, walked him through forms, then stepped outside to talk to neighbors. One neighbor, a white man who barely spoke to anyone, opened his front door and told police he heard a loud thump the night before. That single sentence decided the next 20 years of Marcus Holloway's life. Police walked back across the yard, placed him in cuffs, and arrested him for murdering the woman he loved. If you're new here, subscribe for more true stories that reveal what happens when truth collides with power. Marcus Holloway's life was predictable in the best way. A steady job at the distribution plant, evening dinners with his wife Ayanna, late-night shows they never finished because one of them always fell asleep halfway through. Neighbors knew them as the quiet couple who kept to themselves. Nothing about the night she vanished suggested danger. Marcus left for work around 6:45 p.m. Ayanna stood in the doorway, tying her hair, making a joke about him forgetting his lunch again. They kissed, and he drove off. The security camera at the plant confirmed he arrived on time, clocked in, and worked a full shift. When he returned at sunrise, their front door was unlocked. Inside, the living room looked untouched. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no forced entry. Her purse was neatly placed on the dining chair, her keys inside it, her phone plugged into the wall charger. The kind of scene that looked frozen in time. Marcus checked every room, closet, bathroom, backyard, shed. Nothing. He called Ayanna's sister, who said she had not heard from her. He called her best friend. No one knew anything. As panic rose, he called the police. Officers arrived within 20 minutes. They took notes, asked him the same questions over and over. When did you last see her? Did you two argue? Did she use drugs? Did she talk about leaving? Marcus answered all of it the same way. No, no, no. Police searched the perimeter, then began knocking on doors. At the house next door, the neighbor stood with crossed arms and gave them a single detail. I heard a loud thump last night, probably around 10. He shrugged. No urgency, no concern, no further explanation. That was all he gave them. And somehow, that was enough. Minutes later, officers ordered Marcus to turn around. They told him he was being detained, pending further investigation. Minutes after that, he was in handcuffs, sitting in the back of a cruiser, unable to process what was happening as he watched police walk past him into his own home. By sundown, the disappearance of his wife had become the accusation of murder. His life had begun to collapse before anyone even bothered to find a body. Once Marcus was booked, everything moved fast. Too fast. Detectives claimed Ayanna must have been killed inside the home because she would never leave without her purse or phone. They claimed the neighbor's loud thump was consistent with a violent assault. They claimed Marcus's calmness during questioning was suspicious, despite the fact that shock affects people differently. Not a single piece of physical evidence connected him to violence. No blood, no fingerprints out of place, no signs of a struggle, no noise complaints from other neighbors, no DNA. But the absence of a body became the prosecution's strongest weapon. They argued that Marcus disposed of his wife during his night shift, even though cameras showed him inside the building the entire time. They claimed he might have killed her before clocking in. They speculated, guessed, stretched timelines, and strung theories together with nothing but confidence. And the moment Marcus realized he was no longer being questioned as a worried husband, but as a suspect, he broke down. That emotion, detectives decided, was guilt. His court-appointed attorney asked for time to mount a defense. The judge denied the request. The prosecutor painted Marcus as a violent man with a dark temper. None of it was supported by evidence, but the jury did not know that. They saw images of Ayanna's empty purse, her abandoned car, the neighbor's soft-spoken testimony about that loud thump. Marcus took the stand. He cried through most of it. He told them he loved his wife, told them he would never harm her, told them the police had not even searched the neighborhood thoroughly. The prosecution responded with a single sentence designed to crush any hope he had left. Ladies and gentlemen, grieving husbands do not kill their wives. Guilty ones do. After a short deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. Marcus Holloway was sentenced to 20 years. No body, no motive, no proof. Just a missing woman, a neighbor's statement, and a justice system that chose the easy answer. Prison hardened Marcus in a way no one deserved. He went from a man who loved fixing things around the house to someone who counted years by the sound of metal doors closing behind him. He wrote Ayanna letters he knew would never be read. He celebrated their anniversary alone in a concrete cell. He prayed for her soul, even though he never fully believed she was gone. His family visited when they could. Ayanna's sister stopped coming after a few years. She said it hurt too much. Friends drifted away, employers forgot him. Memories turned into something painful instead of comforting. But Marcus clung to one truth. Someone out there knew what happened to his wife. Someone out there was responsible for both of their disappearances. Still, the system had decided. And once the system decides, it rarely reconsiders. While Marcus lived behind bars, the neighbor who mentioned the thump lived comfortably in the home next door. No one questioned him again, no one ran background checks, no one followed up. Ayanna remained listed as a missing person. The case went cold. Years passed. 10, 15, 20. Then the call came that would change everything. A wellness check. A man found unresponsive. A neighbor not answering phone calls. A neighbor named Richard Haley. The same neighbor who had opened his door 2 decades earlier and casually dropped a sentence that destroyed a man's life. Paramedics arrived first, then officers. Richard Haley, now elderly, had suffered a stroke. He was alive but barely conscious. While medics worked, officers began clearing the house to ensure no one else was inside. The home smelled musty, neglected. Rooms cluttered. Lights dim. Nothing unusual until one of the officers paused in the hallway, head tilted. He heard something faint, soft, rhythmic, a tapping. It was coming from below. He called out. No answer, but the tapping continued, slow, weak, intentional. They followed the sound to a locked basement door. They forced it open and descended the stairs, flashlights sweeping through dust and old furniture. The tapping grew louder. At the back of the basement was another door, this one metal, bolted from the outside. Someone had attempted to disguise it with storage boxes, but the frame was unmistakable, a soundproof room. When they unlatched it and pulled it open, the tapping stopped. Inside, crouched in the corner, thin, pale, terrified, blinking against the sudden light, was a woman, alive, traumatized, still trying to signal for help. Ayanna Holloway, 20 years missing, 20 years assumed dead, 20 years locked beneath the floor of the man who claimed to hear a loud thump. Ayanna's rescue turned the entire case on its head. She was rushed to the hospital, malnourished, disoriented, barely speaking above a whisper. Doctors said she had survived in a controlled environment, clean water, enough food to keep her alive but not healthy, very little contact with the outside world. When she regained strength enough to talk, she confirmed the unthinkable. On the night Marcus left for work, the neighbor lured her with a fabricated emergency. When she stepped outside, he pulled her inside his home. She screamed once before he struck her, the thump he later reported to police. He kept her in the soundproof room from that night forward. Ayanna tried to escape dozens of times. She tapped pipes, she scratched walls, she screamed until her throat bled. But no sound escaped the walls around her. And the man who kept her there visited enough to maintain control, but not enough to kill her. She survived by counting days with scratches on a metal bar, by whispering Marcus's name in the dark, hoping he could somehow hear her, by refusing to let herself die in a place built to erase her. When investigators searched the house fully, they found journals, notes, drawings, records of the year she spent trapped. Evidence that should have been found 2 decades earlier. Evidence no one had bothered to look for. Marcus Holloway was released within hours of the discovery. The prosecutor apologized on camera. Reporters followed him as he left prison. But freedom did not erase 20 years. It did not restore birthdays he missed or memories taken from him. When he walked into the hospital and saw Ayanna, he froze. She reached out first, fragile but determined. Their reunion was quiet, raw, and overwhelming. 2 people who had been torn apart, not by fate, but by human failure, finding each other again. Healing was slow. Ayanna struggled with the trauma of confinement. Marcus struggled with the trauma of wrongful imprisonment. Neither wanted the attention the media poured on them. But both agreed on one thing. What happened to them should never happen to anyone else. A full investigation followed. Officers who handled the original case were questioned. The neighbor died shortly after his stroke, never facing trial. The state reviewed every case tied to the old precinct. And in the end, the judge who vacated Marcus's conviction said words that carried more weight than any apology. This was not a mistake. This was a failure of duty. If you love stories where truth cuts through the darkness, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. More real, raw, and gripping stories are coming your way. Stay tuned.